नमस्कार दोस्तों, स्वागत है आप सभी का मेरे इस न्यू वीडियो में और आपके अपने यूट्यूब चैनल मज़ेदार रीडिंग में। आज हम लोग करने आ रहे हैं चैप्टर नंबर 2 हिस्ट्री क्लास 8 की रीडिंग, जिसका ये नाम है ट्रेड टू टेरिटरी। दोस्तों आपको पहले बता दूं, मैं आपको ये चैप्टर एक्सप्लेन नहीं करता और ना ही आपको इसके नोट्स लिखवाता हूँ। मैं आपके लिए रीडिंग करता हूँ दोस्तों, जो कि बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक है, रीडिंग सबसे फर्स्ट स्टेप होता है दोस्तों किसी भी चीज़ को समझने का। ठीक है, तो आप अगर रीडिंग सुन रहे हैं ना दोस्त, तो इसका मतलब आप खुद की अंडरस्टैंडिंग भी डेवलप कर पाएंगे। आप 3 4 5 बार अब जब ये वीडियोस देख लेंगे ना, तो आपके दिमाग में छपने लग जाएगा। और 4 5 बार जब देखना है तो 2 2 दिन के गैप में देखिए। आज एक बार देखिए, फिर 2 दिन बाद, 3 दिन बाद एक बार देखिए, फिर 3 दिन बाद और एक बार देखिए, ऐसे करके देखिए। और स्पीड बढ़ाते जाइए देखने का। हर दिन 1 के स्पीड पे नहीं देखना है नॉर्मल, वो कभी 1.5, कभी 1.75, ऐसे ऐसे करके देखना है। ठीक है दोस्तों, तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं बिना आपका टाइम व्यर्थ किए हुए। फ्रॉम ट्रेड टू टेरिटरी द कंपनी एस्टैब्लिशेस पावर। औरंगजेब was the last of the powerful Mughal rulers. He established control over a very large part of the territory that is now known as India. After his death in 1707, many Mughal governors, subedars, and big zamindars began asserting their authority and establishing regional kingdoms. As powerful regional kingdoms emerged in various parts of India, Delhi could no longer function as an effective center. By the second half of the 18th century, however, a new power was emerging on the political horizon: the British. Did you know that the British originally came as a small trading company and were reluctant to acquire territories? How then did they come to be masters of a vast empire? In this chapter, you will see how this came about. ये फिगर में देखते हैं दोस्तों, क्या बता रखा है: बहादुर शाह जफर एंड हिज सन्स बीइंग अरेस्टेड बाय कैप्टन हॉडसन. After Aurangzeb, there was no powerful Mughal ruler, but Mughal emperors continued to be symbolically important. In fact, when a massive rebellion against the British rule broke out in 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Mughal emperor at the time, was seen as the natural leader. Once the revolt was put down by the company, Bahadur Shah Zafar was forced to leave the kingdom, and his sons were shot in cold blood. East India Company comes east. In 1600, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with the East. This meant that no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. With this charter, the company could venture across the oceans looking for new lands from which it could buy goods at a cheap price and carry them back to Europe to sell at a higher price. The company did not have to fear competition from the English trading companies. Mercantile trading companies in those days made profit primarily by excluding competition so that they could buy cheap and sell dear. Routes to India in the 18th century. ये देखिए इंडिया का रूट ब्रिटिश से कैसे आता था दोस्तों, देख सकते हैं. The Royal Charter, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the eastern markets. By the time the first English ships sailed down the west coast of Africa, round the Cape of Good Hope, and crossed the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese had already established their presence in the western coast of India and had their base in Goa. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer, who had discovered this sea route to India in 1498. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possibilities of trade in the Indian Ocean. Soon the French traders arrived on the scene. Mercantile, a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods cheap and selling them at higher prices. The problem was that all the companies were interested in buying the same things. The fine qualities of cottons and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. Pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon too were in great demand. Competition amongst the European companies inevitably pushed up the prices at which these goods could be purchased, and this reduced the profits that could be earned. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by eliminating rival competitors. The urge to secure markets therefore led to fierce battles between the trading companies. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, they regularly sank each other's ship, blockaded routes, and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trade was carried on with arms, and trading posts were protected through fortification. This effort to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers. The company therefore found it difficult to separate trade from politics. Let us see how this happened. East India Company begins trade in Bengal. The first English factory was set up on the banks of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the company's traders, known at that time as factors, operated. The factory had a warehouse where goods for export were stored, and it had offices where company officials sat. As trade expanded, the company persuaded merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory. By 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. 2 years later, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights over 3 villages. One of these was Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Calcutta or Kolkata as it is known today. It also persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free. The company tried continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate existing privileges. Aurangzeb's Farman, for instance, had granted only the company the right to trade duty free, but officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. This they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. How could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, not protest? Farman, a royal edict, a royal order. Local boats bring goods from ship in from ship. Boats bring goods from ships in Madras, painted by William Simpson, 1867. How trade led to battles. Through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal intensified. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power and autonomy as other regional powers were doing at the time. Murshid Quli Khan was followed by Alivardi Khan, then Sirajud-Dowla as the Nawab of Bengal. Each one of them was a strong ruler. They refused to grant the company concessions, demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade, denied it any right to mint coins, and stopped it from extending its fortification. As accusing the company of deceit, they claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal government of huge amounts of revenue and undermining the authority of the Nawab. It was refusing to pay taxes, writing disrespectful letters, and trying to humiliate the Nawab and his officials. ये देखिए रॉबर्ट क्लाइव का पिक्चर दे रखा है दोस्तों. The company on its part declared that the unjust demands of the local officials were running the trade of the company, and the trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. It was also convinced that to expand trade, it had to enlarge its settlements, buy up villages, and rebuild its forts. The conflicts led to confrontations and finally culminated in the famous Battle of Palasi. Puppet, literally a toy that you can move with strings. The term is used disapprovingly to refer to a person who is controlled by someone else. The Battle of Plassey. When Alivardi Khan died in 1756, Sirajud-Dowla became the Nawab of Bengal. The company was worried about his power and keen on a puppet ruler who would willingly give trade concessions and other privileges. Puppet, literally a toy that you can move with strings. The term is used disapprovingly to refer to a person who is controlled by someone else. ये हो गया दोस्तों. यहाँ कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछा गया है कि आप क्या ये जानते हैं, तो ये आप लोग देख लें क्या बताया गया. Did you know how Plassey got its name? Plassey is an anglicized pronunciation of Palashi, and the place derived its name from the Palash tree, known for its beautiful red flowers that yield gulal, the powder used in the festival of Holi. तो होली फेस्टिवल में यूज़ करने वाले जो गुलाल होते हैं दोस्तों, उसी के वो जिस पेड़ से पाए जाते हैं पलाश, उसी का प्रोनाउंसिएशन इंग्लिसाइज्ड प्रोनाउंसिएशन है ये प्लासी. So it tried without success to help one of the Sirajud-Dowla's rivals become the Nawab. An infuriated Sirajuddaulah asked the company to stop meddling in the political affairs of his dominion, stop fortification, and pay the revenues. After negotiations failed, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory at Qasim Bazar, captured the company officials, locked the warehouse, disarmed all Englishmen, and blockaded English ships. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort there. On hearing the news of the fall of Calcutta, the company officials in Madras sent forces under the command of Robert Clive, reinforced by naval fleets. Prolonged negotiations with the Nawab followed. Finally, in 1757, Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajuddaulah at Plassey. One of the main reasons for the defeat of the Nawab was that the forces led by Mir Jafar, one of the Sirajuddaullah's commanders, never fought the battle. Clive had managed to secure his support by promising to make him Nawab after crushing Sirajuddaulah. The Battle of Plassey became famous because it was the first major victory of the company won in India. The general figure 5 में दिखा रखा है दोस्तों. The general courtroom, East India House, Leadenhall Street. ये देखिए दोस्तों. The court of proprietors of the East India Company had their meetings in the East India House or on Leadenhall Street in London. This is a picture of one of their meetings in progress. ये सिराजुद्दौला. ये सोर्स दे रखा है दोस्तों कि कहाँ से लिया गया था, ठीक है. तो ये सब आप लोग पढ़ लें. After the defeat at Plassey, Sirajuddaulah was assassinated and Mir Jafar made the Nawab. The company was still unwilling to take over the responsibility of administration. Its prime objective was the expansion of trade. If this could be done without conquest, though through the help of local rulers who were willing to grant privileges, then territories need not be taken over directly. Soon the company discovered that this was rather difficult, for even the puppet Nawabs were not always as helpful as the company wanted them to be. After all, they had to maintain a basic appearance of dignity and sovereignty if they wanted respect from their subjects. What could the company do? When Mir Jafar protested, the company deposed him and installed Mir Qasim in his place. When Mir Qasim complained, he in turn was defeated in a battle fought at Buxar, 1764, driven out of Bengal, and Mir Jafar was reinstalled. The Nawab had to pay rupees 5 lakh every month, but the company wanted more money to finance its wars and meet the demands of trade and its other expenses. It wanted more territories and more revenue. By the time Mir Jafar died in 1765, the mood of the company had changed. Having failed to work with puppet Nawabs, Clive declared, "We must indeed become Nawabs ourselves." Finally, in 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the company as the Diwan of the provinces of Bengal. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue sources of Bengal. This solved a major problem that the company had earlier faced. From the early 18th century, its trade with India had expanded, but it had to buy most of the goods in India with gold and silver imported from Britain. This was because at this time, Britain had no goods to sell in India. The outflow of gold from Britain slowed after the Battle of Plassey and entirely stopped after the assumption of Diwani. Now, revenues from India could finance company expenses. These revenues could be used to purchase cotton and silk textiles in India, maintain company's troops, and meet the cost of building the company fort and offices at Calcutta. Company officials become nabobs. What did it mean to be nawabs? It meant, of course, that the company acquired more power and authority, but it also meant something else. Each company servant began to have visions of living like nawabs. तो ये दोस्तों सोर्स दे रखा है, सोर्स आप लोग वहाँ पे देख सकते हैं ये सब. After the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of Bengal were forced to give lands and vast sums of money as personal gifts to company officials. Robert Clive himself amassed a fortune in India. He had come to Madras, now Chennai, from England in 1743 at the age of 18. When in 1767 he left India, his Indian fortune was worth 401 euro. Oh, sorry, 4,01,102 euros. Interestingly, when he was appointed governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked to remove corruption in company administration, but he was himself cross-examined in 1772 by the British Parliament, which was suspicious of his vast wealth. Although he was acquitted, he committed suicide in 1774. सोचो कितनी बुरी बात है, क्लाइव का गलत काम किया उसकी वजह से बेचारा छोड़. ये सोर्स 3 दे रखा है दोस्तों. However, not all company officials succeeded in making money like Clive. Many died an early death in India due to disease and war, and it would not be right to regard all of them as corrupt and dishonest. Many of them came from humble backgrounds, and their uppermost desire was to earn enough in India, return to Britain, and lead a comfortable life. Those who managed to return with wealth led flashy lives and flaunted their riches. They were called nabobs, an anglicized version of the Indian word nawab. They were often seen as upstarts and social climbers in British society, and were ridiculed or made fun of in plays and cartoons. Company rule expands. If we analyze the process of annexation of Indian states by the East India Company from 1757 to 1857, certain key aspects emerge. The company rarely launched a direct military attack on an unknown territory. Instead, it used a variety of political, economic, and diplomatic methods to extend its influence before annexing an Indian kingdom. After the Battle of Buxar 1764, the company appointed residents in Indian states. They were political or commercial agents, and their job was to serve and further the interests of the East India Company. Through the residents, the company officials began interfering in the internal affairs of Indian states. They tried to decide who was to be the successor to the throne and who was to be appointed in administrative posts. Sometimes the company forced the states into a subsidiary alliance. According to the terms of this alliance, the Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. For example, when Richard Wellesley was Governor General 1798 to 1805, the Nawab of Awadh was forced to give over half of his territory to the company in 1801 as he failed to pay for the subsidiary alliance. Hyderabad was also forced to cede territories on similar grounds. Nawab Shujauddaulah of Awadh with his sons and the British resident, painted by Tilly Kettle Oil 1772. The treaties that followed the Battle of Buxar forced the Nawab Shujauddaulah to give up much of his authority here. However, he possessed in regal splendor, towering over the resident. Injunction, instruction, subservience, submissiveness. ये सोर्स पूरा दोस्तों आप लोग पढ़ सकते हैं चाहे तो. Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. The company restored to direct military confrontation when it saw a threat to its political or economic interests. This can be illustrated with the case of the southern Indian state of Mysore. Mysore had grown in strength under the leadership of powerful rulers like Hyder Ali, ruled from 1761 to 1782, and his famous son Tipu Sultan, ruled from 1782 to 1799. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast, where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. In 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom and disallowed local merchants from trading with the company. He also established a close relationship with the French in India and modernized his army with their help. The British were furious. They saw Hyder and Tipu as ambitious, arrogant, and dangerous rulers who had to be controlled and crushed. Four wars were fought with Mysore: 1767 to 69, 1780 to 1784, 1790 to 1792, and in 1799. Only in the the Battle of Seringapatam, did the company ultimately win a victory. Tipu Sultan was killed defeating his capital Seringapatam. Mysore was placed under the former ruling dynasty of the Wodeyars, and a subsidiary alliance was imposed on the state. Cornwallis receiving the sons of Tipu Sultan as hostages, painted by Daniel Orme, 1793. The company forces were defeated by Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan in several battles. But in 1792, attacked by the company forces, the Marathas, the Nizams of Hyderabad, and the company, Tipu was forced to sign a treaty with the British by which two of his sons were taken as hostages. British painters always liked painting scenes that showed the triumph of British power. तो ये देख सकते हैं दोस्तों, यहाँ पे दिखाया गया है. The legend of Tipu. Kings are often surrounded by legend and their powers glorified through folklore. He is a legend about Tipu Sultan, who became the ruler of Mysore in 1782. It is said that once he went hunting in the forest with a French friend. There he came face to face with a tiger. His gun did not work and his dagger fell to the ground. He battled with the tiger unarmed until he managed to reach down and pick up the dagger. Finally, he was able to kill the tiger in the battle. After this, he came to be known as the Tiger of Mysore. He had the image of the tiger on his flag. Tipu's toy tiger. This is the picture of a big mechanical toy that Tipu possessed. You can see a tiger mauling a European soldier. When its handle was turned, the toy tiger roared and the soldier shrieked. This toy tiger is now kept in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. The British took it away when Tipu Sultan died defending his capital Seringapatam on 4th May 1799. War with the Marathas. From the late 18th century, the company also sought to curb and eventually destroy Maratha power with their defeat in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. The Marathas' dream of ruling from Delhi was shattered. They were divided into many states under different chiefs, Sardars belonging to the dynasties such as Sindhia, Holkar, Gaikwad and Bhosle. These chiefs were held together in a confederacy under a Peshwa, principal minister, who became its effective military and administrative head based in Pune. Mahadji Sindhia and Nana Phadnis were two famous Maratha soldiers and statesmen of the late 18th century. The Marathas were subdued in a series of wars. In the first war that ended in 1782 with the Treaty of Salbai, there was no clear victor. The Second Anglo-Maratha War, 1803 to 1805, was fought on different fronts, resulting in the British gaining Odisha and the territories north of the Yamuna River, including Agra and Delhi. Finally, the Third Anglo-Maratha War of 1817 to 1819 crushed Maratha power. The Peshwa was removed and sent away to Bithur near Kanpur with a pension. The company now had complete control over the territories south of the Vindhyas. The claim to paramountcy. It is clear from the above that from the early 19th century, the company pursued an aggressive policy of territorial expansion. Under Lord Hastings, Governor General from 1813 to 1823, a new policy of paramountcy was initiated. Now, the company claimed that its authority was paramount or supreme, hence its power was greater than that of Indian states. In order to protect its interest, it was justified in annexing or threatening to annex any kingdom. This view continued to guide later British policies as well. This process, however, did not go unchallenged. For example, when the British tried to annex the small state of Kittur in Karnataka today, Rani Chennamma took to arms and led an anti-British resistance movement. She was arrested in 1824 and died in prison in 1829. But Rayanna, a poor chowkidar of Sangoli in Kittur, carried on the resistance. With popular support, he destroyed many British camps and records. He was caught and hanged by the British in 1830. You will read more about several cases of resistance later in the book. A statue of the Queen of Kittur, Karnataka, वही रानी छन्नम्मा. देखो छन्नम्मा. लॉर्ड हेस्टिंग्स ये हैं. कन्फेडरेसी का मतलब होता है अलायंस दोस्तों, ठीक है ये. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. It imagined that Russia might expand across Asia and enter from the northwest. Driven by this fear, the British now wanted to secure their control over the northwest. They fought a prolonged war with Assam between 1838 and 1842 and established indirect company rule. Sindh was taken over in 1843. Next in line was Punjab, but the presence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh held back the company. After his death in 1839, two prolonged wars were fought with the Sikh kingdom. Ultimately, in 1849, the Punjab was annexed. The doctrine of lapse. The final wave of annexations occurred under Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General from 1848 to 1856. He devised a policy that came to be known as the doctrine of lapse. The doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, माफ करना दोस्तों आराम था. He devised a policy that came to be known as the doctrine of lapse. The doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse, that is, become part of company's territory. One kingdom after another was annexed simply by applying the doctrine. Satara in 1848, Sambalpur 1850, Udaipur 1852, Nagpur in 1853 and Jhansi in 1854. Finally, in 1856, the company also took over Awadh. This time, the British had an added argument. They said they were obliged by duty to take over Awadh in order to free the people from the misgovernment of the Nawab. Enraged by the humiliating way in which the Nawab was deposed, the people of Awadh joined the great revolt that broke out in 1857. Maharaja Ranjit Singh holding court. देख सकते हैं दोस्तों. A portrait of वीर सुरेंद्र राय. दोस्तों मैं एक्टिविटी इसलिए नहीं पढ़ रहा क्योंकि एक्टिविटी एग्जाम पर्सपेक्टिव से उतनी ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, ठीक है. ये देखिए दोस्तों, इंडिया 1797 रेड एरिया है जो कि ब्रिटिश रूल के अंदर नहीं है. येलो वाला एरिया जो है वो ब्रिटिश रूल के अंदर है. फिर येलो वाला एरिया इसमें देखिए बढ़ते जा रहा है. फिर इसमें देखिए क्या 1857 में और बढ़ चुका है, 1840 में थोड़ा कम है और 1857 में और बढ़ चुका है दोस्तों, ठीक है. तो ये आप लोग देख लें किस तरीके से ब्रिटिश रूल का एक्सपेंशन हो रहा था. फिगर 14 ABC, expansion of British territorial power in India. Look at these maps along with the present day political map of India. In each of these maps, try and identify different parts of India that were not under British rule. तो देख सकते हैं दोस्तों आप लोग. Setting up a new administration. Warren Hastings, Governor General from 1773 to 1785, was one of the many important figures who played a significant role in the expansion of company power. By his time, the company had acquired power not only in Bengal but also in Bombay and Madras. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called presidencies. There were three presidencies: Bengal, Madras and Bombay. Each was ruled by a governor. The supreme head of the administration was the Governor General. Warren Hastings, the first Governor General, introduced several administrative reforms, notably in the sphere of justice. From 1772, a new system of justice was established. Each district was to have two courts: a criminal court, Faujdari Adalat, and a civil court, Diwani Adalat. Maulvis and Hindu Pandits interpreted Indian laws for the European district collectors who presided over civil courts. The criminal courts were still under a Qazi and a Mufti, but under the supervision of collectors. A Qazi क्या होता है? Judge. Mufti, a jurist of the Muslim community, responsible for expounding the law that the Qazi would administer. Impeachment, a trial by the House of Lords in England for charges of misconduct brought against a person in the House of Commons. ये दिखा रखा है दोस्तों, the trial of Warren Hastings, painted by R.G. Pollard, 1789. When Warren Hastings went back to England in 1785, Edmund Burke accused him of being personally responsible for the misgovernment of Bengal. This led to an impeachment proceeding in the British Parliament that lasted 7 years. देख सकते हैं दोस्तों, ये सोर्स 5 है, फिर से आप लोग पढ़ लें, इसको देख लें एक बार ध्यान से. एग्जाम पर्सपेक्टिव उतना ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है दोस्तों, इसलिए मैं नहीं करा रहा. अ मेजर problem was that Brahman Pandits gave different interpretations of local laws based on different schools of the Dharma Shastra. To bring about uniformity, in 1775, 11 Pandits were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws. N.B. Halhed translated this digest into English. By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. Under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established, while a Court of Appeal, the Sadar Nizamat Adalat, was also set up at Calcutta. The principal figure is an Indian district was the collector. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector, as the title suggests. His main job was to collect revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district with the help of the judges, police officers and darogas. His office, the collectorate, became the new center of power and patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authority. The company army. The colonial rule in India brought in some new ideas of administration and reform, but its power rested on military strength. The Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, sawars, trained soldiers on horseback, and infantry, that is paidal, foot soldiers. They were given training in archery, tirandasi, and the use of sword. The cavalry dominated the army, and the Mughal state did not feel the need to have a large professionally trained infantry. The rural areas had a large number of armed peasants, and the local zamindars often supplied the Mughals with paidal soldiers. A change occurred in the 18th century when Mughal successor states like Awadh and Benares started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. The East India Company adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army, which came to be known as the Sepoy army, from the Indian word Sipahi, meaning soldier. As warfare technology changed from 1820, the cavalry requirements of the company's army declined. This is because the British Empire was fighting in Burma, Afghanistan, and Egypt, where soldiers were armed with muskets and matchlocks. The soldiers of the company's army had to keep pace with changing military requirements, and its infantry regiments now became important. Dharma Shastras, Sanskrit texts prescribing social rules and codes of behavior, composed from 500 BCE onwards. Sawar, men on horses. Musket, a heavy gun used by infantry soldiers. Matchlock, an early type of gun in which the powder was ignited by a match. In the early 19th century, the British began to develop a uniform military culture. Soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, drill and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Often this created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored in building a force of professional soldiers. Could individuals so easily give up their caste and religious feelings? Could they see themselves only as soldiers and not as members of communities? What did the sepoys feel? How did they react to changes in their lives and their identity, that is, their sense of who they were? The revolt of 1857 gives us a glimpse into the world of sepoys. You will read about this revolt in chapter 5. Figure 16, a Sawar of Bengal in the service of the company, painted by an unknown Indian artist, 1780. After the battles of the Marathas and the Mysore rulers, the company realized the importance of strengthening its cavalry force. Conclusion, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a territorial colonial power. The arrival of new steam technology in the early 19th century also aided this process. Then Until then, it would take anywhere between 6 and 8 months to travel to India by sea. Steamships reduced the journey time to 3 weeks, enabling more Britishers and their families to come to and far off country like India. Come to a far off country like India. By 1857, the company came to exercise direct rule over 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent. Combined with its indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. ये हो गया दोस्तों, यहाँ पे बंगाल का एक सवार का पिक्चर दे रखा है दोस्तों। इसी के साथ हमारा चैप्टर हो जाता है ये वाला कंप्लीट। एल्सवेयर देख लेते हैं क्या होता है। स्लेव ट्रेड इन अफ्रीका। द डच ट्रेडिंग शिप्स reached southern Africa in the 17th century. Soon a slave trade began. People were captured, chained and sold in slave markets. When slavery ended in 1834, there were 36,774 privately owned slaves at the Cape located at the southernmost tip of Africa. A visitor to the Cape in 1824 has left a moving account of what he saw at a slave auction. हैविंग लर्नड, तो यहाँ पे स्लेव के बारे में बताया गया दोस्तों। ये वाला उसका बात है तो वो उतना ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, ठीक है दोस्तों। चलिए, तो इसी के साथ हो गया हमारा चैप्टर ये वाला कंप्लीट। यहाँ पे तो लेट्स इमेजिन वगैरह कुछ नहीं इंपॉर्टेंट है इतना दोस्तों। अगर आप लोग इसी तरीके से बने रहेंगे, पहली बात तो आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई कि आप लोग कम से कम बने रहे 36 मिनट्स 19 सेकेंड्स तक आप लोग बने रहे हैं दोस्तों। आप लोगों को बहुत बहुत बधाई। इसी प्रकार से आप लोग हर वीडियो में बने रहेंगे तो आपका रीडिंग बिना एक्चुअल रीडिंग के ही हो जाएगा दोस्तों। सोचिए 17 पेज का चैप्टर मैंने आपको 40 मिनट के अंदर करा दिया। अगर आप लोग वीडियो थोड़ा तेज़ करके सुनेंगे, मतलब फास्ट फॉरवर्ड करके देखेंगे 1.25 के स्पीड पे या फिर 1.5 के स्पीड पे, तो और जल्दी हो जाएगा दोस्तों, ठीक है। तो आशा करता हूँ दोस्तों आप लोग को पसंद आ रहा है ये सब चीज़। और अगर आपको वीडियोस हेल्पफुल लग रहे हैं दोस्तों तो आप लोग लाइक शेयर और सब्सक्राइब जरूर करें। मेरे बेस्ट विशेष हमेशा आपके साथ रहते हैं। मिलते हैं आपसे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में। थैंक यू एंड हैव अ नाइस डे।